Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to another one of Nathan Bell's commentary videos where Nate talks about science, politics, life, art, anything under the sun. Give it a like, give it a subscribe, please. And also, if you know someone who'd be interested in this video, then give it a share. Today, Nate wants to talk about the difficulties of time travel. Space travel, I should say.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the difficulties of space travel. When I was a teenager, I'd watch Star Wars and, they lift off a planet and then they go out into space and they shoot off to the other side of the galaxy and they're fine and they're sitting in the cockpit of their spaceship and they don't die and nothing goes wrong, and all of a sudden they're at the other side of the galaxy and they're landing on another planet and they're getting out and they're talking to people as if, half an hour has passed. And, a lot of people still imagine that that's how space travel works, but that's just not how space travel works. And as I've gotten older and learned more about science, I've realized just how difficult space travel is. And I question a lot whether there are interstellar species that are capable of traversing the galaxy and the universe. And I think about it a lot. And the more I've come to realize how difficult space travel is, the more I bring into question whether those species exist. I still think they could exist because there are some ways that it's possible to do this. I think more likely, as I've said in previous videos, robots sent by organic life will traverse the galaxy and the universe, and in potentially independent robot species will traverse and explore the universe, because it's very, very difficult for organic life to travel across distances of space. Do you know, if you ask Google, Google will tell you traveling at the speed of light, which isn't possible for our species at this stage. We can't do that. But even traveling at the speed of light, it will take 200,000 years to traverse the length of the galaxy. So in Star Wars, they lift off in this galactic republic they have in Star Wars, and all of a sudden they shoot off to the other side of the galaxy. We don't know if they're using wormholes or hyperdrive or something, but it would take 200,000 years at the speed of light to travel to the other side, from one side of the galaxy to the other. So that rules that out. And there are other things that impact your ability to travel across space. You would need some sort of artificial gravity, because astronauts on the space station and the International Space Station living in low gravity, their bones degrade and their muscle density degrades from the lack of gravity. So, you need some sort of artificial gravity. And is it possible to create artificial gravity? Well, scientists don't know if it's possible to create artificial gravity, but certainly people can't travel in zero gravity for lengthy periods of time, because basically their muscles and their bones degrade. And I think basically what happens is their body falls apart. So without some sort of artificial gravity, we can rule out long distance space travel. And as I said about how long it takes to travel across the galaxy, 200,000 years, an organic life form to travel around the galaxy would have to live for millions of years. Perhaps with genetic engineering, we can prolong our lifespans to live for tens of thousands of years through genetic engineering. Then organic life may be able to travel the distances of space, but we would need to come up with some technology through genetic engineering or nanobots that can repair us indefinitely, so that we could live for tens of thousands of years like the engineers in Prometheus and travel around the galaxy. And even then, we wouldn't be able to travel around the universe, only the galaxy, because that's difficult and takes long enough to travel around the galaxy. So we'll have to live for hundreds of thousands and millions of years if organic life wants to travel around and explore the galaxy. But as I said, we can send robots, and robots will probably do this. And if there are independent robot species, they may explore the galaxy and the universe. But there are other things. In space, radiation levels are higher because the atmosphere protects, on Earth, on the planet, the atmosphere protects us from the bombardment of radiation that exists in space. And when you go out into space and you leave the safety and security blanket of the atmosphere, you're bombarded with radiation. And astronauts on the International Space Station are bombarded with radiation, and this can cause cancers to develop and other illnesses to develop. So, we have to develop some sort of technology that deflects the radiation bombardment that you face in outer space. Otherwise, everyone traveling through space for lengthy periods of time will die of cancer. So again, it's extremely difficult to traverse the distances of space. You've got the radiation to think about as well, because there's all this radiation in space bombarding you, so you get cancer. So again, another difficulty of space travel. Another difficulty of space travel, the big difficulty of space travel, is time dilation. Did you know that your head is a few seconds older than your feet? And I think that's because of gravity. I think it's gravity and velocity of an object moving through space time that causes time dilation. But technically speaking, your head is a few seconds older than your feet. And astronauts on the space station, which is only just in orbit, just above the planet, they're a bit older than us, and they experience time differently than us, and they age slightly, think slightly slower than us here on Earth. Um, and if you were to travel at the speed of light to the other side of the galaxy and back, by the time you got back, everyone here would be long dead. The planet would probably be gone. Millions of years would have passed. So this idea that we can just shoot off from one planet to the other side of the galaxy, hang out on that planet for half an hour, then shoot back to Earth and everyone's still here and getting on, and we can carry on a conversation as if we just left, that's not realistic, particularly because of time dilation. You travel over to the other side of the galaxy, then you come back, millions more years have passed on the planet you left behind, and you've barely aged. So everyone's long gone and dead, and you've barely aged. So time dilation is one of the big things which makes space travel extremely difficult. Now, wormholes are a potential for getting around these sorts of things. Wormholes may allow us to travel instantaneously from one point in space to another point in space. And I go and look up whether time dilation still happens when you travel through a wormhole. I don't think it does, but we don't know if wormholes if we can create wormholes, or if it's possible to create wormholes that are safe to travel through. It may be the case that if an organic life form travels through a wormhole, they break down and fall apart, and they may not be able to come out the other side. And then we don't know if we can keep wormholes open long enough for something to go through and then come back. So it just may not be possible for organic life to traverse the distances of space. So it may be impossible for an organic species to colonize the galaxy like they have in Star Wars, because in Star Wars, the galaxy is a democracy, it's a republic, and they all interact with each other, and different planets and worlds interact with each other as a government. Well, that sort of scenario is probably not possible. There couldn't be any functioning galactic government or galactic community for these reasons. I've spoke about the Galactic Federation, and I still think the Galactic Federation is feasible. There can be communications across space, but even communications, there's a sphere of distance around the Earth where our communications have gone that far, and they haven't gone any further. And it's not very far, because we've only been broadcasting signals for just over 100 years. So it takes a long time for transmissions to travel as well. So communication across the galaxy is basically impossible as well, unless there is some other sort of way to send signals that we don't know about yet, or we can send signals through wormholes. But really, wormholes, if they're possible, are the solution to these problems. And if it's possible for organic life to travel through wormholes and survive, then it may be possible for organic life to travel the distances of space and go back and forth. And then something like the Galactic Federation may exist for organic life. But I want to reiterate, as I've said in previous videos, robots don't have these issues. We can send robots out, and robots can go great distances and come back, and there's not an issue. And robots don't deteriorate and die. And there may be independent, as I've said in previous videos, there may be independent robot civilizations that spend their time traveling around the universe, and that's what I think the Galactic Federation is. I think the Galactic Federation is probably mostly comprised of robotic civilizations. Some of them may act on behalf of organic life, and they may communicate with organic life, but really robots can get around all of this. So if another species has at any point in the history of the galaxy developed artificial intelligence and then died off for whatever reason, that artificial intelligence might still exist, and those robots may be explorers, and they may explore the galaxy and the universe. So I think it's probably likely, if there are interstellar species, they're probably robots. They're probably not organic, because it's so difficult for organic life to travel the distances of space safely without dying. And in the time the time it takes to travel these distances prevents organic life from doing this. So if there is a Galactic Federation, they're probably robots. And if there are interstellar species zipping around the galaxy and the universe exploring other worlds, they're probably robots. They're probably an independent robot species, or they may be robots sent on behalf of an organic species. But yeah, any interstellar species is probably robots, and it's probably not practical or possible without wormholes for organic life to travel the distances of space. So the future will tell us whether we can create wormholes and whether that solution to these problems exists. So anyway, there's some thoughts about the difficulties of space travel and how movies like Star Wars and Star Trek aren't realistic. So drop a comment in the comment section with your thoughts about space travel.